I am Mitch Mitchell, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners, and it is 9:07 a.m., and I'm going to call today's meeting, special meeting of the board, to order. We are meeting in person this morning with commissioners, staff, and members of the public in attendance. We have a quorum. It's nice to see everybody. Commissioner Hester is not here, but I will send her a note saying I missed her. Video of today's meeting is also being streamed live online. The link to watch today's hearing is on the Housing Commission website at www.sdhc.org. To accommodate additional members of the public who may wish to participate in today's meeting, we have set up an overflow room down the hall. There is also live streaming of this meeting in that room. Speaker slips are available in the overflow room for those who wish to provide comments, and our staff will bring me those speaker slips should there be anyone that has one to provide. At the appropriate time, our staff will escort you to the boardroom, and members of the public here in the boardroom or in the overflow room who wish to provide comment must indeed complete a speaker slip and hand it to our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, who's sitting on the side of the room. To speak in favor of any item on today's agenda, please submit a gold speaker slip. To speak in opposition to any agenda item, please submit a pink speaker slip. And if you wish to address the board on a topic that is not on the agenda, please fill out a white speaker slip. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments about agenda items or non-agenda public comments. However, if a large number of people wish to provide non-agenda public comments or speak on a single agenda item, comments will be limited to 1 minute each. Organized group presentations will be of 5 or more people will be limited to 15 minutes. And when I call your name, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and begin making your comments. And now it is time for non-agenda public comments. And we do not have any non-agenda public comments, so there are no speaker slips have been submitted, so we will now take any comments from the commissioners who'd like to make any comments. All right, seeing no comments from the commissioners, we will go right into the agenda. And the first item on the agenda is item 100. All of the items on our agenda today will be presented by Senior Vice President of Real Estate Development, Colin Miller, and Director of Multifamily Underwriting, Michelle Muniz. So, as we prepare for item 100, the preliminary bond authorization of the TEFRA hearings for the Bayer Boulevard Trolley Village, we will take public comments after the presentation. We have 1 speaker slip that I see already, but Colin and Michelle, the floor is yours. Please begin when ready.
Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. The item before you today is a request to take the initial steps to issue up to $22,500,000 in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds, up to $37 million in taxable bonds, and hold a TEFRA hearing to facilitate the new construction of Bayer Boulevard Trolley Village. Bayer Boulevard Trolley Village is the proposed new construction of a 100-unit project which is made up of 99 affordable units and 1 unrestricted manager's unit. The project is located at 4055 Bayer Boulevard in the San Ysidro Community Plan area of San Diego in Council District 8. The proposed project's 99 affordable units will include studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. All units will be for households with income levels from 30 to 60% of the area median income for 55 years. This equates to income levels from $36,750 a year to $104,940 per year for 1 to 4 person households. The project will consist of 1 6-story building with leasing and management offices on the first level. On-site amenities will include a clubhouse, a community room, computer room, laundry facilities, bike storage, a picnic area, a playground with tot lot, and a rooftop patio and deck. The developer, Affirmed Housing Group, is an experienced, award-winning developer based in San Diego that has developed over 70 communities with over 6,000 units. With respect to the proposed development, the project received an award through the San Diego Housing Commission's fiscal year 2022 Notice of Funding Availability of 30 project-based vouchers. These vouchers will be for individuals with incomes at or below 30% of the area median income but are not experiencing homelessness. Services will be provided by Compass for Affordable Housing at no cost to the residents and will include the services listed on this slide. This slide shows the site map of the development and shows the proximity to transit, grocery stores, and schools. The site is located on a portion of the San Ysidro Transit Station outlined in purple. Several bus lines are also in close proximity, as noted in blue. The closest grocery store is within 1/2 mile of the property in green, and the closest school is Sunset Elementary, located within 1/3 of a mile of the project site. The total development cost of the project will be approximately $73 million, which equates to a per-unit cost of approximately $733,000. Notable sources of funding include a bond finance permanent loan, loans from the City of San Diego and County of San Diego, funding from the State of California, deferred developer fee, and tax credit equity. Units will be restricted at 30 to 60% of the area median income for 55 years. Rents will range from $868 to $2,580 per month. As shown on this slide, the developer is proposing a spread of AMI levels across all units, regardless of whether it's a studio, 1, 2, or 3-bedroom unit. Please note, the pro forma provided as an attachment to this report has changed. The most current rents are represented on this slide. An updated version of the pro forma will be provided at final bond authorization. Should this be approved today, the developer will apply to SIDLAC for a bond allocation next month. Should the developer receive an award of bonds, we anticipate bringing this item back for final bond-related approvals in January 2027. In addition to Housing Commission board approval, the project will also be brought before the Housing Authority for approval. The developer expects to close on construction financing and begin construction in March 2027 and complete construction in August 2028. Here is the architect's rendering of the proposed project. You are considering approvals to take the preliminary steps to issue up to $22,500,000 in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds and up to $37 million in taxable bonds. Approval of the bond issuance and Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act resolution does not commit the Housing Authority to issue bonds. The bonds would not constitute a debt of the city. If bonds are ultimately issued for the project, the bonds will not financially obligate the city, the Housing Authority, or the Housing Commission because security for the repayment of the bonds will be limited to specific private revenue sources of the project. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. Colin and I, as well as a representative from the developer, are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, Michelle. We have one speaker slip on this item, and I would like to call Vianney Rubalcaba.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Vianney Rubalcaba. I'm with Affirmed Housing, and I just wanted to thank the Commission for bringing forth this item here. I'm very excited about this project. I actually grew up in the area in San Isidro, and yeah, I just want to say thank you for your support, and I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Commissioners, are there any comments or questions regarding this project? Yes, Commissioner Vasquez.
Good morning. Thank you. I am excited that we have a multiple income or a diverse income project with so many different sets of units, especially having 3 bedrooms for affordable housing. For far too long, it's just been 2 bedrooms. So congratulations on that. My one question is I'm concerned because there is such a huge shortage of 3-bedroom units for families that are struggling. 30 to 60% of the income, gross median income, is still a significant amount of cost. Why is it that the manager's unit is the unrestricted 3-bedroom unit instead of maybe a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom unit?
Thanks. So the unit mix and which unit is set aside as the manager's unit is up to the developer to decide. We don't have any, it's not a scoring thing we would consider when doing the NOFA. And so if the developer has a specific reason, I would ask them to provide. But in general, that's not something we have dictated to the developers in the past.
Thank you for your question. I think the reason for the 3-bedroom manager's unit really comes down to a staffing situation as well. I think that having the size of the unit is part of the entire package for the manager. So that's just comes down to a staffing issue as well. We want to attract the best talent when it comes to the property manager, and that is the reason to have the 3-bedroom that comes with kind of an amenity package that goes back into the whole compensation for the property manager. But I can certainly provide more information if needed from our asset management team. They work day to day with the property manager on the staffing.
I would think in order to recruit Commissioner Vasquez, it needs to be a real space that offers the comforts of a home. And so I think that's probably a smart strategy. You want to get long-term, you want to have
Also allows for
stability, families with children.
If I may respond, it's just the fact that it's unrestricted. So we have 3 bedrooms in a low-income housing situation that has unrestricted income, when that could have gone to a family with restricted income for people that are struggling. Like I said, we have a huge amount of deficiencies for 3-bedroom units for families, right? So that's why for people that with the restricted units, they're having to have multiple children in one room versus having additional units. So that was just wanted to point that out, but I understand that you have to balance out the benefits to the property manager with an unrestricted unit versus balance out the attraction for hiring purposes for a property manager so that they can they would be willing to accept that position against the lack of units for families. So thank you for addressing the question.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right. Seeing no further questions and no additional speaker slips, I will entertain a motion and a second. We have a motion by Commissioner Jackson, a second by Commissioner Cushman. Seeing no further comments or questions, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. All right. Colin, Michelle, we are going to move to your next item, which is item 102, the preliminary bond authorization and TEFRA hearing for the Encanto Gateway Apartments. Take it away. Apologize, I skipped one. That's why you guys did that. I apologize. I was like 102. When I heard Michelle go, oh, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait, that's on me. I take it back. Next up is item 101, the preliminary bond authorization and TEFRA hearing for 4970 Market. We do have one speaker slip, which we will take after the presentation, but now, Colin, Michelle, take it away.
Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. Thank you for keeping us on our toes. The item before you today is a request to take initial steps to issue up to $30 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds and up to $71 million in taxable bonds, as well as hold a TEFRA hearing, Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, to facilitate the new construction of 4970 Market Apartments. 4970 Market Apartments is the proposed new construction of a 244-unit development, which is made up of 242 affordable units and 2 unrestricted manager units in the Encanto Neighborhoods Community Plan area of San Diego. The project will be located at 4970 Market Street in Council District 4. The proposed project's 242 affordable units will be comprised of 161 one-bedrooms, 41 two-bedrooms, and 42 three-bedroom apartments for individuals and families with incomes ranging from 30 to 70% of the area median income, which equates to $42,000 to $122,450 per year for 2 to 4 person households. All units will remain affordable for a 55-year term. This development is a joint venture between Mutual Housing and Impact Housing. Mutual Housing California is a registered 501c3 nonprofit affordable housing developer that is based in Sacramento with over 30 years of experience providing resident services. They currently coordinate and provide a variety of services at over 1,500 affordable units throughout 24 mutual housing communities across the greater Sacramento area. These properties collectively provide stable, affordable homes for more than 3,900 residents. It is experienced in property management, marketing, maintenance, renovations, and tax credit developments. Mutual Housing Management will manage 4970 Market, as well as provide service coordination, staff support, and resident services, as well as activities staff support and resident activities, as well as coordinate with third-party service providers who can bring additional resources and programs for the benefits of residents. Impact Housing is a real estate and modular construction company focused on lowering building costs and delivering high volumes of naturally affordable workforce housing for low and moderate income earners. With 2 projects completed delivering 106 units, there are 3 more developments nearing completion, slated to add a little over 1,000 units, a little over 1,000 affordable units to the greater San Diego area. This will be the first project Mutual Housing California and Impact Housing will develop in San Diego with the Housing Commission that utilizes tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds issued by the Housing Authority. Based on the developer's past experience and performance across the greater Sacramento and San Diego areas, Housing Commission staff have determined that the developers have the capacity to successfully complete the proposed development. Services that are planned to be offered are listed on this slide. Thank you. This slide shows the site map of the development and the proximity to transit, schools, and grocery stores. The site is located less than 1/10 of a mile from the Euclid Avenue light rail, 2/10 of a mile from the Euclid Avenue and University Place rapid bus stop, 2/10 of a mile from a grocery store, 1/10 of a mile from Horton Elementary, 1.1 miles from Millennial Tech Middle School, and a half mile from Lincoln High School. The closest grocery stores are Food for Less and Sunrise Market, both within 4/10 of a mile of the site. The total development cost of the project is approximately $107.9 million, which equates to a per unit cost of approximately $442,000. The developer plans to utilize funding sources including a bond finance permanent loan, lease up during construction, deferred developer fee, as well as federal tax credit equity. The Housing Commission is not providing any loan funds for this project. As stated earlier in the report, units will be restricted at 30 to 70% of area median income for 55 years, with rents ranging from $984 to $3,183 per month for the 1 through 3 bedroom units. Should these actions be approved today, the developer will apply for 4% tax credits next month on the 8th. If awarded in December, the developer will return to the Housing Commission for final bond authorization in March, with the Housing Authority approval scheduled for April, and then close on construction financing and begin construction in June of 2027, with an anticipated completion of construction in January of 2029. This is the proposed site map for the project. Oh, there we go. You are considering approvals to take the preliminary steps to issue up to $30 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds and up to $71 million in taxable bonds. Approval of the Bond Issuance and Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility, or TEFRA Act, resolution does not commit the Housing Authority to issue bonds. The bonds will not constitute a debt of the city. If bonds are ultimately issued for the project, the bonds will not financially obligate the city, the Housing Authority, or the Housing Commission, because security for the repayment of the bonds will be limited to specific private revenue sources of the project. Neither the full faith and credit nor taxing power of the city, nor full faith and credit of the Housing Authority will be pledged to the payment of these bonds. Staff is recommending that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. Michelle and I, as well as a representative from the developer, are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Colin. All right, we have one speaker slip, and it is Parker Evans with Mutual Housing California.
Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. My name is Parker Evans, and I'm the Acquisitions Manager for Mutual Housing California, a nonprofit affordable housing developer based in Sacramento. I flew down here this morning on behalf of Mutual Housing and our partners Impact Housing to thank you both for this bond inducement resolution and TEFRA hearing. Mutual Housing California is an experienced affordable housing developer with 1,500 units of affordable housing in the Sacramento region and another 500 units currently under construction, including the largest new construction tax credit project in the history of the city of Sacramento. I've always considered Mutual Housing to be an old school community developer with a strong emphasis on resident engagement, resident empowerment, and resident leadership. Should this bond application be successful, this will be our first project in Southern California, and there are 2 key reasons why this is our maiden voyage. First is our partner, Impact Housing. We were initially connected by a shared commitment to delivering housing faster and cheaper through factory-built housing. Mutual Housing is currently pursuing multiple projects in the Sacramento region using factory-built housing, including one that's under construction right now in Stockton. But Impact's in-house capabilities for architecture, engineering, contracting, and factory are really supercharging our approach here. The second reason is that the city of San Diego is on an extremely short list of jurisdictions in the state of California that can move as quickly and decisively as we want to move. I can tell you it's refreshing to work with partners that not only understand the urgency of the housing crisis, but really operationalize that understanding by giving us the flexibility that we need to deliver affordable housing to our communities. So I want to thank you all and your staff, especially Colin and Michelle. You guys have some really, really, really killer staff here for your work and dedication. And I'm available to answer any questions you guys might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Parker. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, I have a couple questions regarding this. I'm noticing the cost on this one's $442,000 out the door, and the one previous was $700,000.
Yes.
About 30-something% difference. Is that due to the prefab construction, or what is the situation on that?
Yeah, it's a great observation, Commissioner, and that is the main reason for the ability to deliver units at a lower cost. There's also a speed component as well. Parker, have I missed anything, please?
No, that's exactly right. The factory built housing component is going to be the largest piece here. We're able to take some of the projects that Impact has done in the past, modules that they have refined over past projects, and really maximize for efficiency. And when we're doing a project like this at scale for 244 units, the fixed costs get distributed across a larger per unit figure. And then, you may have noticed that this project is going to get delivered. The construction period is only 18 months for 240 units. I think is pretty remarkable. That saves a ton for us on our construction loan interest, which is a very large number.
Was one of the things I noticed when we were doing the briefing on this was the cost differential, and so. Further questions, comments? Commissioner Vasquez.
Sorry, for the developer, I think what the factory housing definition was. So I appreciate the explanation that you gave all of us. My question is that I didn't see if this had any solar power functionality, or solar energy that was a component, and what type of I would say solar component is one of the issues that I would be looking at, and then any other type of current amenities that we're being accustomed to make sure that if this is going to be if it's factory manufactured, that we are addressing any potential issues in the future that we could be having.
Yeah, I'll say, first of all, from a construction perspective, factory-built or modular housing is indistinguishable from site-built housing. And in a lot of ways, it's actually more effective and more efficient and better for residents because the floor and the ceilings get stacked together, and because the adjacent walls get stacked together, the sound penetration is reduced substantially. It has some structural advantages as well. From a solar perspective, we're going to be solar ready and installing some solar on the roof. What I'll say is from an energy efficiency perspective, this project is taking an approach where there is no utility allowance. The project is going to pay for all of the resident utilities. Therefore, it is really imperative to us as the developer, since we own the electricity bill at the end of the project. It is incumbent on us, and we are highly motivated to design as efficient a building as we possibly can, because those resident costs are going to hit our operational budgets every month. Of course, yes.
Well, you say of course, but there are a lot of units in San Diego that do not have, especially apartments, that do not have AC. So thank you for that.
Yes.
I think because you guys are from Sacramento, you understand how hot it can be.
I certainly do.
It's one of my favorite things to watch is the new members that get elected in Sacramento in their first summer, and they walk in at about 5:30 in the afternoon, like, what the hell happened outside? I'm like, well, it's hotter at 5 than it is at noon. Welcome to Sacramento.
One of my last question is now, in a follow-up question to the previous action item was, I noticed now there's 2 manager units, and they are, again, are occupying unrestricted and taking one of the 3 bedroom units that are available. So can you speak to that, please?
Absolutely. So, per TCAC regulations for a project of this size, we are required to have 2 on-site managers units. And the way that flows through the TCAC process is that they show as unrestricted is the way that works. We've chosen to have those as 3-bedroom units. And I can tell you that Mutual Housing, for many years, we had our managers units in 1 and 2-bedroom units, and we had a difficult time keeping and attracting staff. You are probably aware that property management and affordable housing in California has extremely high levels of turnover. It is very, very difficult to attract and retain staff, and making sure that we can accommodate staffers that are competent and have families is really critical for us. So we've made a conscious decision on all of our projects. We have projects that only have 1 and 2-bedroom units, and we build a 3-bedroom unit specifically just for the manager to make sure that we can do that. So that is really, really critical for us.
Thank you. That helps address the previous question that I had. So I appreciate your candor.
Okay.
Can I'll be real quick. I just want to say I think it's really exciting to have a new service provider and property management team in this city, right? I mean, we have obviously worked with impact housing before, but having Mutual Housing down here, you're right, it is hard to find strong property management, and then one that also understands the service and the population when there's different populations that are being served in a community. I think it's fantastic. So welcome. Thanks for coming, and also thanks for pointing that out with the managers unit. The reality is too, even though this is technically an unrestricted units, these are not the highest paying jobs. These a lot of these jobs are going to be under 80% AMI anyway, right? For the most part, I'm guessing. I haven't looked at the pro forma for each one of those, but that's generally the case, right? So they, to a large degree, we are serving a family that otherwise might have a challenge getting into other housing. So there's that too.
Okay. I'll just end with this. When we were doing the pre-briefing on this, I was really excited. Again, I will echo what Lisa said. Welcome to the market. Hopefully you will stay around and continue to find opportunities. I think the price per key really stood out. And what it reminds me of is we've talked about that part of our crisis here in San Diego is about the infrastructure. We're going to have to build our way into a better situation. And where we have open pieces of property and we have opportunity, it's projects like this that will make a big difference. And I was recently in a meeting in Sacramento where I was talking with someone who represents the Marin County area, and I was shocked at this. I'll say this to my fellow commissioners. The median price for a home in Marin County is $2 million. It's now down to 189, and I asked the person I was meeting with the question. I said, if the median price for a home is $2 million, where are all the service industry professionals and staff living? Because they're not living in Marin. They're driving in from elsewhere. And we have a situation in San Diego where people live further away from where they work. And I think projects like this, when you can bring them, I'm glad this is going to be a part of our portfolio. But we have to think aggressively about how we do this more. I will also note in closing that you mentioned that it's easier and faster to build here. I will give credit to the mayor and for his focus on trying to ease the calendar and the time element, and that it clearly is an attraction. And so anybody else in the market that wants to build this type of project and come here to San Diego, this region could definitely afford to have more of you. And we have to, again, to continue to build the infrastructure that makes it easier for the people who work in all the industries to live closer to where they work. And so I love this project, and thank you very much, Parker. All right. Yes.
One last closing comment. I just want to thank you for coming down and to kind of piggyback of having an additional provider. I've been following the prefab for a little while now, and I'm glad to see it's finally coming to San Diego, that we're starting to do it, because we can actually double the amount at this price range.
Exactly.
We can do 2 projects for the price of 1.
We have grown numb at times because we've had projects. The staff has called me ahead of time and says, "Hey, there's gonna be a project. It's 900,000 per key." I'm like, what is affordable about 900,000 per key? So I think that I agree with you that this more of this is great. And we talk about the cost of living here in San Diego, and you were talking about solar and the energy piece. One of the things that I loved hearing was that, the residents aren't going to get a bill, that you are taking it upon yourself in this project to make sure you manage the energy properly. And that's also a statement. That's huge, right? Because cost of living these days is about your energy consumption, your fuel consumption, groceries, your rents. And so I appreciate you taking it upon yourself. And I think, Colin, state law always says there has to be solar on new construction. Does that apply to our affordable projects that are coming, or does that not apply?
It needs to be solar ready.
Solar ready. Okay, good. All right, perfect. So that clarifies that. So
Yeah, meaning like you have stub outs on the roof.
Yep.
And you have the infrastructure in place that you could place a panel later.
Yep. Okay, wonderful. So, all right, and I'll just close with this. As I mentioned, the Marin comment, and Pete Parker, you know this, you're considered living in poverty in Marin County if you make $160,000 a year or less. So they could use a lot of housing. We don't want to see that problem become a bigger, more aggressive issue here in San Diego. So thank you. All right. Seeing no further comments and questions, I will entertain a motion in a second. So motion by Commissioner Vasquez. Second. Oh, look, all right. Wait, all right. Thank you. This first one, I appreciate it. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further comments or questions, all those in favor of the motion say by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, no abstentions, the motion carries unanimously. We will now move on to, Michelle, brace yourself, item 102. Next up on the agenda is item 102, preliminary bond authorization and TEFRA hearing for the Encanto Gateway Apartments. Try it again.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. The item before you today is a request to take the initial steps to issue up to $16,500,000 in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds, up to $15 million in taxable bonds, and hold a TEFRA hearing to facilitate the new construction of Encanto Gateway Apartments. Encanto Gateway is the proposed new construction of a 65-unit development, which is made up of 64 affordable units and one unrestricted manager unit in the Encanto Neighborhoods Community Plan area of San Diego. The project is located at 6601 Imperial Avenue in Council District 4. The proposed project's 64 affordable units are comprised of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units for individuals and families with income levels ranging from 30 to 60% of the area median income, which equates to $42,000 per year to $104,940 per year for 2 to 4 person households. 9 units will be reserved for individuals experiencing homelessness. All units will remain affordable for a 55-year term. The development is a joint venture between National Core and I Am My Brother's Keeper Community Development Corporation. With over 10,000 units in service and $1.6 billion in assets, National Core is an experienced developer that has successfully completed several projects using Housing Commission capital funds. I Am My Brother's Keeper is an emerging developer providing services to the community for over 2 decades. This will be the developer's first project with the Housing Commission. With respect to the proposed development, the Housing Commission awarded a preliminary loan of up to $1 million and 10 project-based vouchers through the fiscal year 2024 Notice of Funding Availability. 9 of the project-based vouchers are reserved for households experiencing homelessness or chronic homelessness with serious mental illness. This loan recommendation was previously presented and approved by the Housing Commission Board earlier this year in March. Services for all residents will be provided at no cost by National Core's nonprofit affiliate, Hope Through Housing Foundation. Services that are planned to be offered are listed on this slide. Additional services will be provided by San Diego County Behavioral Health Services for the households experiencing homelessness or chronic homelessness with serious mental illness. Other general services and employment training will be provided by I Am My Brother's Keeper. This slide shows the site map of the development and the proximity to transit schools and grocery stores. The site is located less than 1/10 of a mile from the Imperial and 65th Street Trolley Station and MTS bus stops notated in orange and green. The closest grocery store and elementary school are located within 1/4 mile of the project site, noted in blue and yellow respectively. The total development cost of the project is approximately $55 million, which equates to a per-unit cost of approximately $848,000. The developer is using multiple funding sources, including a permanent loan, a loan from the Housing Commission, and loans from the City of San Diego, the County of San Diego, funding from the state's Infill Infrastructure Grant and Multifamily Housing Program, as well as tax credit equity. The Housing Commission loan in the amount of $1 million accounts for less than 2% of all sources. Units will be restricted at 30 to 60% of the area median income for 55 years. Rents will range from $984 to $2,728 per month for the 1 through 3 bedroom units. Should these actions be approved today, the developer will apply for 4% tax credits next month. If awarded in December, the developer will return to the Housing Commission for final bond authorization in March 2027, Housing Authority approval in April, and close on construction financing and begin construction in May 2027. The project is anticipated to complete construction in January 2029. Here's the architect's rendering of the site. You are considering approvals to take the preliminary steps to issue up to $16,500,000 in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds and up to $15 million in taxable bonds. Approval of the Bond Issuance and Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act resolution does not commit the Housing Authority to issue bonds. The bonds will not constitute a debt of the city. If bonds are ultimately issued for the project, the bonds will not financially obligate the city, the Housing Authority, or the Housing Commission because security for the repayment of the bonds will be limited to specific private revenue sources of the project. Neither the full faith and credit nor taxing power of the city nor full faith and credit of the Housing Authority will be pledged to payment of the bonds. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. Colin and I, as well as a representative from the developer, are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do not have any speaker slips for this item, so we will go right into commissioner comments, questions, or I will entertain a motion.
I have a question here regarding,
Commissioner Jackson.
again, the cost. It seems like it keeps going higher and higher and higher in less units. And it makes it so that I feel really hard to support some of these with the increased cost, unless we're getting less out of it. I'm glad we have somebody else here that has a different build set. I've been following that for quite some time, and I've always looked at it as it's a way for us to lower costs and get more bang for a buck. I'm going to support this, but I think maybe in the future, it's something we need to start focusing on a little bit more.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. I think this one obviously clearly stands out because the previous one was 242 units at 440,000, and this one's 65. So I know, Colin, I know we've struggled with land pricing, an additional cost, but this, as Commissioner Jackson mentioned, this does stand out.
Mitch?
Commissioner Cushman.
So, Tony, in following up, the next item is 435,000. So we have two, you can do it under $500,000 a unit. I don't know what position we have or don't have in this area. I'd appreciate some advice and counsel from staff, but you know, I see this at 847,000. We had an affirmed project at $1 million. You know, that's not going to help us get where we need to get.
Right.
I'd rather do the 400,000 and get twice as many. I mean, so.
You're right.
I don't know, but I don't know that we have anything to say about it, Lisa.
I would just say this before Colin answers. You know, Commissioner Cushman and Commissioner Jackson, for years we've lamented the fact that the price per key was going up. When we crossed the 700,000 per key threshold, we became nervous. Then all of a sudden, 800,000 became the standard, and we were like, boy, as long as we're under 900,000, and we were worried we were never going to get back down to the 400,000 per key mark, you know, 385, 400. And so I think it's a legitimate question and concern. Mr. Commissioner Cushman, you know the real estate market. I think we should be trying to entice as many of the projects as we can that can come in that 400 to 500,000 range as possible. But that's Colin. You take it from there.
Yeah, thank you for the comments and the very astute observations. Before we have the National Corps representative come up to address this, I want to kind of point out a couple different things. So when you look at the two projects that are coming to us that are at 440,000 a door, I think it's important to take a look at the capital stack. I'm going to go back a couple slides because this is important. So National Corps does an amazing job of securing a lot of other funding. We're 1/55th of the entire capital stack. I think what you're seeing here is that you have a project that takes longer to get done. It takes time to chase these funding sources. And these funding sources, each of them have their own strings attached. And so to get to this point is monumental on the part of the developer. This deal is also, because it has state HCD, it has vouchers, it has No Place Like Home, it has all these different federal and local funding sources and state funding sources, it triggers prevailing wage, which is going to add to your cost as well. And I'm not going to have a discussion about whether prevailing wage is or is not good. That's a different meeting. But the two deals that came in at 440,000 a door don't have prevailing wage as a requirement. And so there is an impact to that. So I think the time it takes to line this up, the challenges of just securing a site that meets all that checks all the boxes for each of these different applications. So this is to get a capital stack like this takes a lot of work. So you're going to have additional legal costs. You're going to have additional financing costs for each of these loans. You're not paying one set of attorneys to do the paperwork. You've got an attorney from each of these groups. So to get to this point, I think I hear you, and I agree that we watched the trend, continually go upward, and there's multiple reasons. You can talk about tariffs, you can talk about other natural disasters that drive up costs, but when you have two deals coming in at 440, it kind of weakens that argument. I think on this one it's taken time to get to where we are with this project, and time definitely can add cost to the project. So with that, I'm going to ask that the representative from National Corps come up and provide additional detail on the cost per unit.
Hi, my name is Randy from National Corps. Colin, you said that very well. Thank you very much. And thank you extra for Michelle for bringing me up here today, where there was a lot of work behind the scenes to get me here so expeditiously. You kind of nailed it on the head in terms of we're paying state commercial prevailing wage. So that adds approximately 23 to 25% on top of our construction costs. I am proud of this capital stack. It has kept me very busy. I've been with National Corps for 6 years, and this one was on my plate. I was with Chelsea, and this one was on our plate. But we've hung in there. This nonprofit partner is very special to us. I'm very proud of the work that they do for the Encanto community. And I'm proud of National Corps. We've made them 50-50 partners on this. In terms of costs, when we purchased the site, we had to purchase a design also that was from an architect that didn't quite do infill work. So they had a large podium, so we had to bring on Studio E. So that brought on another architect. So that increased costs there to the ones that you had mentioned in terms of the time that we've worked on this. Also on a 4%, as we know, the total cap on the developer fee is a lot higher. We are contributing pretty much almost 3/4 of that back as a company to support this project as well. And that's leading to the high cost of this project. The site, if people are familiar with the area, has a lot of challenges. There's like a 20-foot retaining wall. It's been a lot of work. I'm very proud to say I'm on this project. And yes, I do see the number, and it's very daunting. But when we start peeling back the layers of what you had mentioned, the state requirements for these funding sources, we start to bring back to a lower number. And I'm happy to answer any other questions on that.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Yes, thank you. I noticed a couple things with the project. One, that there's a wheelchair accessibility in 15% of the units, which thank you for that. But I am concerned about the fact that there's no proposed parking with this many units. I don't know where all of these people are going to be parking their vehicles.
Yeah, there's 15 surface spots, and that is still a low number when you consider the amount. But to make this work, previously we had podium parking, and the construction costs, it was not feasible. We've been applying to tax credits, 9% rounds, I think 3 times now. The QCT area is literally right across the street in the DDA, so that's made it a little bit more challenging too. But yes, just to clarify, we have 15 surface spots.
But you are adjacent, you're fairly close to 2 trolley stops, if I recall.
We are, yes. I'm very excited to say, and the bus stop is right at the corner with us. Yeah.
I think that becomes the challenge, Commissioner Vasquez. I would agree. I think San Diego, the region has to look at more opportunities along the transit lines. So the fact that they have as few parking spaces as they do did concern me, but the fact that I know the area where the trolley stops are and the bus stops, so not everybody's going to want to take mass transit, but there at least is an option of moving in and around the city that's close by. I'm always more worried. Colin will remember we had a project years ago built down in Otay. There was nowhere near a bus stop or a trolley stop, and I raised the question and the concern that we have to be careful about approving projects of that nature because you're basically moving people in. They're on an island with no transportation options at all. So,
My only response to that is that a lot of people will, if they are housing insecure, right, which we're looking at 30 to 60% of median income, then their cars become their potential backup plan if they lose housing. And so to say, like, in order to move in, you're going to have to sell your car means that if they lose their housing for some reason, then they have no backup plan. So I understand wanting to take transit, but if you don't have a place that's safe for you to park your car, then it makes it difficult for you to have a backup plan.
Fully understand that.
Things don't go right well.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Chrisman?
I think it is totally unrealistic to put in 15 parking places. I don't think that's our role to tell you how to do your business, so I'm not going to do it other than to say, as somebody who's in the real estate business, I think it's ridiculous to put 15 parking places in. My real question is to Lisa, and that is, how do we encourage, thank you, sir, how do we encourage people to present projects to us that are in the under $500,000 range? Is there any way that we can help spurn that versus these $800,000 to $1 million a door projects? Do we have any role at all? Anything we can do to encourage that?
So I'm going to pass this to Colin in a minute. There's potentially a lot of ways to figure out how to do that. We also have some potential pros and cons when we do something like that. Frankly, if we were to put something in Arnofa that restricted, like capped unit cost at like $550,000, let's say, which basically forces into almost modular or AC rehab or like, off-site construction, basically no prevailing wage, we're going to get sued by the labor union. I'm just going to be really honest. Labor union will sue us, right? Like, because it's creating a scenario that forces something and limits their opportunities. So I think we have to be very careful of how we go about this and think about ways to incentivize as opposed to punish. Encourage, right? And maybe have a much broader, thoughtful conversation around this. And I think it's a conversation that involves San Diego Housing Federation and their members, right? And understanding that, like, we all want the cost to be less. Developers want the cost to be less too. And I want to bring up something that we have talked about before, which is the fact that a lot of time affordable housing development is on the site that no one else will do, right? So it has all kinds of hair on it already. It's already got challenges. It costs more from that perspective as well. They just have so many more hurdles. So it's important to remember that as well, especially when we're doing like infill projects. I mean, there's a reason they weren't built before, right? So I just want to caution that it's a conversation that we should have, but we don't want to limit what's coming through on the pipeline because that just means less housing overall, right? So I think it's about encouragement and really working with our partners.
And I'll just add on to what Lisa just said, Commissioner Kussman. For years, we've said in this organization that we need a little help from the city. In certain areas where there is land and opportunity, it's the developer impact fee component that the city controls. And we've written at least 2 letters to the city asking for relief in the future urbanizing area, for example, where if you're trying to build more affordable housing in all over the city, and you have opportunity in the future urbanizing area off the 56, it's the diff and all the additional elements that the city puts on the builders there that makes building in that area impossible at a reasonable number per key. Even though we've written a couple of letters, we've never received a response about why they don't want to make the changes. But I think some of this, as Lisa just said, you and I have been at this for a long time. I think there has to be some sort of an initiative that we launched in partnership with the city and labor, and we're looking at opportunities, and then and trying to find projects that can fit on odd pieces of property. But as Lisa said, building on the property that nobody else wants to build on because of the challenges doesn't ever help.
Right. Well, and the other thing it does is usually in these infill spaces, you're not getting as many units in that space, so you can't spread the cost across as many units as well. So that also will push up.
And if I may add, like our developer impact fees on this one is approximately 1.6, and the city has requested a lot of off-site work because a lot of needs, and they wanted us to improve the alley in the back way also. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle. That amount is about 1.2 million of city off-site improvements that work.
And again, I'm not saying the city's wrong to try and look for opportunities to improve. I think that around certain projects, Mr. C, the city should think about what the overall impact is. Do I want the housing to come in, the affordable housing at a reasonable rate? If yes, then some of those additional components need to be thought of. You need to figure out a different way to fund them and not put them on the projects. That's a barrier. So, okay.
If I could just kind of follow up on the comment, I think the thing you also have to consider is if you set a cap on what our total development cost will be at $500,000, SIDLAC and TCAC, their cap is $650,000. Anything over $650,000, and this is obviously they're looking at applications statewide. So Marin County, for example, may be more. So their cap is $650,000. So if we're going to propose a cap that is lower than SIDLAC and TCAC, it's not going to be just the labor unions trying to sue us. It'll be everyone coming after us, because why would we impose a cap that's so much lower than what the state allows for? And so I just kind of put that out there. The other thing too is if we're looking at the cost per unit, and we're encouraging developers to kind of this race to the bottom for that, I think what you're going to see is fewer 2s and 3s. And that is not what I think I've heard today from the board that we want. And so if you're going for a lower cost per unit, some of these developments are providing only studios. Some are providing 1s, 2s, and 3s. I think in the case of this project, there are so many, I'm going to go back to the capital stack, that's why I didn't change the slide. There are so many, it takes so long to get here. If you look at the capital stack on the deals that are under $440 a door, they have a handful of sources. And so they're moving, their construction loan interest is less, the time it takes, the staffing, the salaries you have to pay people to put these applications together and get these things across the line is less. And so I guess the question comes down to is, if you want less expensive units, are you willing to have smaller size units? Because there's not a great trade-off. And also, yeah, to Lisa's earlier comment about the sites not being the best sites, affordable housing is also asked to do a lot of things that other housing might not be asked to do. You heard from Mutual Housing, they're providing all utilities in their units. That's not standard in most market rate developments. That's going to reduce their cash flow. It's going to reduce the size of the first loan they can take on. So affordable housing is going into sites or buying sites that, the market doesn't want, that has a retaining wall. It has things the city's asking them to. We've had this happen on projects we've done with Project Home Key, where we've had to replace swaths of sidewalk that may go, are part of our property, but wasn't part of the initial design. So they're changes. So there's a lot that affordable housing is asked to do, and so it's solving not just the housing crisis. It's providing services. It's providing all the other amenities that you may not normally have in another development. So my hat's off to the two developers today who are able to bring forward deals that are at $440 a door. How we encourage that? Honestly, it's what you're doing today. We're having a special board meeting. This is not a regular meeting. We're doing this so we can get developers to the CIDLAC meeting in September. We have to be flexible, and that's what we're doing right now. We're making some of those changes that you're asking about. This is how we do it. We become a better partner, an even better partner with the developers. But it's a challenge. I would hesitate to set a cap of $500,000.
Commissioner Reed?
Yeah, I would want to push back against sort of the notion that cost per unit is the key metric we should be looking at. There's some other metrics that are within these presentations, such as the gross cost per square foot. And we could start to think about things like the gross cost, say, per bedroom in terms of the families that are being served. The units are also not apples to apples comparisons. As Colin has mentioned, not only is Project 103 all studios, but Project 101, I'm messing up the numbers too, was prefab, and it's presumed, and I love prefab, that everything is going to go well and it's all going to arrive on time and all those things are going to work out. And as somebody who's been a lender, I know that prefab looks great at the beginning, it's what you get at the end, and that's not to say that this project won't be wonderful, but we aren't there yet. And so we're at the very start of the process of essentially authorizing people to go for bonds, which they still have to tap dance for. They then have to get all of these other sources and come back and get a final approval. And that's when we're going to see a much better vision of what these projects are actually going to cost. So I think it's useful to have the conversation about cost. I think it's important for us to be there, but I think that if we want to have affordable housing of all different types for all different types of populations, we have to acknowledge that each piece of dirt is a snowflake, and so everything we're going to put on that piece of dirt is likewise going to be unique. And so it's just an overall cap would, I think, would make things difficult.
Great comments, Commissioner Reed. I appreciate your perspective, in particular on the cost per room. I think the standard that we've looked at through in this body has been that the cost per unit, because the cost per key, because we've watched that number dramatically rise, and that has created concern. And I think Commissioner Cushman mentioned wasn't that long ago we had a project that was $1 million a key, right? And I think it's our responsibility as the Board of Commissioners to say that should not be something that becomes a regular thing. And you're right, every piece of dirt is different. Lisa's heard me say this before. We have to look for opportunities to bring stuff into the Commission's portfolio where we can create a better price for the dirt, because through partnership, I firmly believe, and Lisa's heard me say this, that we should be talking to North County Transit District. When it goes back to what Colin said, the type of project, we for years talked about the need, because we're seeing an increase in the number of requests from families. So the need for more 3 bedrooms has been there. And we're still not, from an infrastructure standpoint, where we'd like to be. But I would also make the argument that when we look at who's leaving San Diego, the youth movement that are, they're just like, I can't buy a place in San Diego. I think that also signals that where we can build more studios and 1-bedrooms, we should, for that side of the market, right? Because we don't want people to continue to leave because they feel like they just can't find a place to live. And we've never put it in our plan that we're trying to get 30% of the projects to be 3 bedrooms and 50% to be 2 bedrooms or 1 bedrooms and the remainder to be studios. But I think we need to kind of discuss and talk more about how we incentivize and partner. And again, I go back to what I said. I think the city has some responsibilities on helping relieve cost pressures because they treat these projects different than they might treat a market rate project. That was the beauty of Homekey. We didn't have to worry about any of this. We just were like, hey, state's going to give us money. We're going to buy a hotel project. We're going to do all the ADA amendment changes we need, and we're going to move people in. And easiest projects when you find them to do. Right, Colin?
I think easiest is maybe, and I would not go there. But yeah.
I mean, I said tongue in cheek, but I mean,
let's say possible.
But I think that there's so much that goes into this. So I appreciate your comment, Commissioner Reed. Again, it's just this discussion today is a good one because we see what we like from a number standpoint. But we also see the reality of the situation, and we just have to continue to find ways to try and make good things happen. So, all right. Any further comments, questions? All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion in a second.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Very much. I will entertain a motion. Commissioner Vasquez. Second. Thank you very much. Everybody's getting in on it today. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further comments, questions? All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we have one last agenda item, and it is item 103, and this is the preliminary bond authorization TEFRA hearing for 1304 India Street Affordable Housing Project. Colin, Michelle, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell, and Commissioners. The item before you today is a request to take the initial steps to issue up to $50 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds and up to $20 million in taxable bonds, as well as hold a TEFRA hearing to facilitate the new construction of 1304 India Street affordable housing. 1304 India Street Apartments is the proposed new construction of a 225-unit development, which is made up of 223 affordable units and 2 unrestricted manager units in the downtown community plan area of San Diego. The project will be located at 4970 Market Street, Council District 3. And the proposed 8-story building will offer amenities listed on the slide. I'd like to note that the board report and PowerPoint state 224 affordable units and 1 manager unit. However, post-publication of the report, the developer informed staff of the need for a second unrestricted manager's unit, resulting in a revised unit mix of 223 affordable housing units and 2 unrestricted manager's units. The proposed project's 223 affordable units will be comprised of studios for individuals with income levels ranging from 30 to 70% of the area median income, which equates to $36,750 per year to $85,700 per year for a 1-person household. All units will remain affordable for a 55-year term. The development is a joint venture between DM Development, Spire Housing, the Urban Coalition, and India Street Property, LLC. DM Development is a real estate investment firm based in San Francisco that has completed 12 housing developments in the San Francisco area, totaling over 400 units with more than 600 in their development pipeline. This will be the first project with DM Development that will develop in San Diego with the Housing Commission utilizing tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds issued by the Housing Authority. Based on the developer's past experience and the performance across the greater San Francisco area, Housing Commission staff have determined that the developer has the capacity to successfully complete the proposed development. The developer has entered into discussions with Pacific Southwest Community Development Corporation as well as Community Housing Works to provide social services that are planned to be offered as listed on this slide. A final social service provider will be selected when this item is brought back for final bond authorization. This slide shows the site map of the development and the proximity to transit, schools, and grocery stores. The site is within 0.2 of a mile of the America Plaza bus stop and trolley stop, 0.6 of a mile from Crisp Grocery Store, 0.7 of a mile from the Ralphs in downtown, half a mile from Washington Elementary School, 1.1 miles from the Urban Discovery Middle School, and 1.2 miles from San Diego High School. The total development cost of the project is approximately $98 million, which equates to a per unit cost of approximately $436,000. The developer plans to utilize funding sources including bond finance permanent loan, lease-up income during construction, a seller note, B bonds, state tax credit equity, deferred developer fee, as well as federal tax credit equity. I'd like to point out the Housing Commission is not providing any loan funds for this development. As mentioned earlier, units will be restricted at 30 to 70% of area median income for 55 years. Rents will range from $918 per month to $2,143 per month for the studio units. Again, the unit mix will be revised to 223 affordable units and 2 unrestricted manager units. Should these actions be approved today, the developer will apply for 4% tax credits next month on the 8th. If awarded at the December CIDLAC meeting, we will return to the Housing Commission Board for final bond authorization in February of 2027, then on to Housing Authority for approval in March, and they will close on construction financing and begin construction in June, anticipating to complete construction on or before June 2029. The next 2 slides are the architect's rendering of the proposed 8-story development. You are considering approvals to take the preliminary steps to issue up to $50 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds and up to $20 million in taxable bonds, as well as approve the financing team of Jones Hall as bond counsel and CSG as financial advisor. Approval of the bond issuance and Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act resolution does not commit the Housing Authority to issue bonds. The bonds will not constitute a debt of the city, and if bonds are ultimately issued for the project, the bonds will not financially obligate the city, the Housing Authority, or the Housing Commission, because security for the repayment of the bonds will be limited to specific private revenue sources of the project. Neither the full faith and credit nor taxing power of the city nor full faith and credit of the Housing Authority will be pledged to the payment of the bonds. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. Michelle and I, as well as representatives from the developer, are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. All right, commissioners. Commissioner Vasquez.
Thank you. I know that we aren't going to, the project isn't going to be using any of the Housing Commission's funds. However, I believe that there is still a duty to make sure that we approve affordable housing units in the city of San Diego that resemble the type of housing plan that we want to see for our community members. And in that responsibility comes the responsibility to address unintended consequences of building this many units for studio units at 878 square feet, and what that's going to play for the future. Although I completely understand the desire to address our young people not having a place to live, my concern is I don't want us to turn into a New York City space where it's incredible. The units get smaller and smaller, and yet the cost of living continues to increase because of the because of many issues that are beyond our control. So my question is there a restriction of number of people that are allowed per unit?
So in a studio unit, it's either one person per unit. I believe you may be allowed to have 2 people if they're you're not putting families in there, if that's your question.
What I'm asking for is, part of the reason why we ask for a map that addresses how close you are to a grocery store and to a school is because the assumption is that a single woman with her child or a single person with their child would need accessible transportation to the grocery store. They're not living in a food desert, right, location, or accessibility to being able to take their kids to school. Like, generally speaking, we're talking about affordable housing. In this situation, if it's reduced to just one adult and no child, then we're not really addressing the main issue, which is the people that are living on the streets with children. I think that it is important that if it's going to have our stamp of approval for the San Diego Housing Commission, then it needs to address the people that are living on our streets and making sure that we're taking care of our children. And if there's a restriction on a studio apartment that doesn't allow for a woman and her child to live there, then I can't be in favor of this project.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's a restriction, just to be clear. And to address your comments, this kind of gets to the lack of maybe quasi workforce housing. It's right in Little India, and so Little Italy on India Street, and so you have a lot of individuals who may work in that area. You're a block from from the Santa Fe Depot, or a block and a half. from the Santa Fe Depot, so that's the coaster, that's the metro. You have a metro line, you have the bus lines. It's one of the bigger hubs, kind of like here at Smart Corner. So from a transportation perspective, I think it meets, I think a 2-block radius meets that objective. But you're also providing affordable housing in an area where you have a number of individuals who may work in that area who no longer have to commute from much further away. And so that's the intent. This is not meant to be permanent supportive housing.
I would agree with that, Commissioner Vasquez. I fully agree with your comment. To go back to what I said on the last discussion, the last project. We've noted the need for more 3-bedroom units, more family units, right? And so we understand that. But I'm also going to add on to what I said is that we also are seeing our youth move out of San Diego because they can't find places to live. Years ago, Sherm Harmer, Commissioner Kushner, remember Sherm? I remember when he proposed building a project right across from Fashion Valley Mall. And the unique component of that project was he was building units for people who worked in the mall. And I thought that was so unique. And I said, hats off to Sherm. We have a robust tourism sector downtown, and most people, when they raised parking this year, the biggest complaint you heard were the workers, the waiters and the waitresses, the kitchen staff who were like, well, where am I supposed to park on game night when the hourly rate's now $10 an hour? And so I see this project as a positive because whether you work in Little Italy, you work downtown, somewhere in the tourism space, this is an option. And this goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago. We should, as a commission, have our eyes on, are we making progress in specific areas? Remember, I think we've done a good job discussing homelessness because we segment it. Homelessness is not just one big conversation. It's youth, seniors, it's women with children, it's families, it's adults, and you have to try and build to meet those segments if we want to try and really address the current situation and crisis. On this, I think everything we looked at today had the mixture, and this is the first one that was all studios. And I get your point because when you said that, made your comment, I thought about New York. I thought about my daughter and her 2 roommates in New York living in what is definitely not a family unit, but there's 3 people living in it. You know, I always tease her, if I visit, I don't want to have to sleep standing up in what's called the whatever this space is, right? But that's my only option. And so I do think that when I joined the commission, I remember asking Colin and the team, can you start marking where everything is? Because I wanted to know before we approve, are we looking at where grocery stores are, where transit routes are, things of that nature. And so I appreciate what your comments are. I would say that I agree with you. I think that we have to start looking at projects. Are they filling spaces that we as the commission need to see filled? And if we go too far on the family units, that's great because we're going to get more families into housing and those are stressed economically. But I also, when we see the numbers and the number of people who are moving out of San Diego, they're in the 20-something range because they don't want to live in Temecula and drive to downtown for work. I had a gentleman that worked for me when I was at the chamber. He drove from Murrieta every day because he can't afford anything in San Diego. And I used to tell him on days where it looked like it was going to rain, hey man, it's 12. Please go home because you're never going to get home if you wait till 4. And I think that there's a delicate balance. And I think your comments are accurate that what are the restrictions on this? But I do think this will serve a purpose more so for the people who work somewhere in the general vicinity and are just looking for a place that's affordable so they don't have to live that much further away. So,
Mitch, can I add something
Sure.
real quick? So, Colin, I believe you said these studios are over 800 square feet per unit. So the average unit size in San Diego for a studio is just under 510, 540. So these are bigger units, right? Also, while, voucher does cap occupancy, TCAC works a little differently. The occupancy limits are not the same. But the reality is that an 800 square foot unit, and I think this is actually a pretty good size unit for Little Italy, which is unusual, right? Especially a studio. So it does a couple things. One, I think you make a very good point, Commissioner Vasquez, because we just opened a shelter for single women and single women with children. there's going to need
By
to
the
be
way,
a place
kudos on that
for them to
project.
go.
It's amazing.
Like almost 200 beds, right? So they need to go somewhere. So that's a really valid question. I think at an 800 square foot unit, 2 people for that unit is very comfortable. So I think it does address that issue, which I think is a really important one to keep in mind. I also will note that so we've got the size of the unit, which is larger. We've got the and we've got the 2 folks being in it, and now I've lost my damn point. I had another really good point, right? But this fits in the community, right? So it fits in the community. And the other, it's back now. See, I tell you, what we're talking about here a lot is the housing life cycle, right? So we're talking about the fact that our youth need an affordable place to live. Our seniors do too. So when you bookend it, right? So we've approved a lot, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, but when you bookend it, we have a significant issue with transition age youth not being able to afford to live here and move or end up on our streets. We also have more people, elderly folks that are seniors, experiencing homelessness than ever before. If you get Social Security, you can't afford to live in our city, period. You can't. Social Security is the same here as it is in Ohio. It shouldn't be, but it is, right? So you've lived here your whole life, you've worked your whole life, you're collecting Social Security, you can't afford to live here. So this housing meets both ends of that life cycle, both the youth and the seniors. Plus, obviously, like you mentioned, those 1, 2 person families that need some place to go. And it's a surprisingly large size for a studio. So I think there's a lot of potential positives for this type of housing. You know, I don't know what the restrictions are on this particular space. I didn't go that much into it. But the reality is this type of housing meets a large part of that life cycle that we don't have enough of. So I think I feel pretty good about it. But I think the conversations we've had today, we should have more special board meetings. Like I'm serious. Like we've had really strong conversations around this today, which I think is fantastic because what has bubbled up is really, as a board, what our priorities are, which is great.
I agree. Commissioner Reed.
Hey, so I've got a couple of questions, and they're a little bit more, I think it's going to be for my edification. There's a seller's note of $7 million. I'm wondering if you could just, high level, which of the entities is providing that seller's note, and kind of how does that flow through the project? Because I'm always curious whenever I see a seller's note.
Yeah. So this is one of the, I'm going to ask the developer to come up and explain that part of it. It's because the organizational structure of this is a little more complicated than most of our deals. This was a market rate deal. It's converting to a tax credit deal. So you're going to see players that you don't normally see your typical, here's your nonprofit. So with that, I'm going to ask the team. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mark McDonald. I'm one of the co-founding principals of DM Development. Very happy to be here today in front of the Commission to present 1304 India, and appreciate all of the thoughtful questions and all of the thoughtful conversation around affordable housing. These are questions that we've thought about at length in every project that we do, and specifically about this project at 1304 India. With respect to the question about the seller's note, so as Colin had mentioned, this was a market rate deal that is being now converted to a LIHTC deal. We're thrilled to be doing that. The development team who had started the market rate development had invested over $7 million in the deal, and we're going to be keeping that capital in the deal. And so that came from the India Street entity, and that will stay in the deal through the duration.
So is that part of like the land acquisition and some of the early land development that was done before?
That's right. So the land has been acquired, it's owned, and we've gone through a series of designs, as you can see, and all the pre-development, and work with a general contractor.
So basically some of the 17.3 for the land and some of the pre-development work is what that 7.
That's correct.
Okay. I actually had another question about DM development, so maybe you'd be the perfect person to ask. I saw that this was your first tax credit project here in San Diego. I know that the 4% credits have gotten increasingly competitive, and I'm just wondering, is there going to be a player that has experience points that's going to be part of the development group that's going to apply for the tax credits, or is DM positioned to make that application for the tax credits? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's a great question. With respect to our experience in the tax credit world, so we're doing a project in San Francisco now at 300 DeHaro Street. It's a 425 unit, 11-story development. It's actually very similar in design to 1304 India. So it's all studio units, amenities in a great transit-rich location. We did that deal with 4% federal tax credits and tax-exempt bonds. It's about a $200 million deal. So this one,
And those have been awarded.
that's correct. We got the award in the middle of 2025. We're about 50% complete. We'll be topping out in a couple of months and then inviting our first residents this time, hopefully next year. So in terms of our experience, we have the experience to do the application, to put together all of the financing stack. That being said, in terms of the local expertise here, we're working with a group called Elevate Partners, which is a local developer. They've developed a number of properties in and around San Diego, most recently a project in the Gaslamp District called the Margot Hotel, where I stayed last night, which is actually very similar in design to this project in terms of the size of the units and the scope. And so they have a lot of experience with development in and around San Diego, and we're going to be working with a general contractor called Highland Partners, who has done a number of affordable housing developments with CHW, who is another group that we're talking about being our managing general partner, and they have a tremendous amount of experience, as I'm sure the commission knows, with affordable housing in San Diego, and they're a fantastic group.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
I did also want to clarify with respect to the size of the units. The size of our units are going to max out at 550 square feet, and so I apologize, Colin, if there was a typo in the.
Yeah, where that's coming from, the resident lounge, I didn't want to interrupt, because the resident lounge is 878 square feet. That's in the bullet point number 3 on the executive summary. So the 878 is the resident lounge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So when
yeah.
I asked, units were.
I was trying to not interrupt, yeah.
You could have told me.
I'm just like.
I don't want to be that person that thinks they're spouting numbers that they don't, they just want to touch them. Okay.
It's kind of like Michelle did when I was like, item 102, she's like, oh! Okay. Any further comments, questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion in a second.
Wait a minute.
Oh, Commissioner Cushman.
I am with you 100% on the size of the unit. What I think this project does, for the first time that I've seen in a long time, we have never figured out workforce housing. As we applauded getting rid of all the SROs in downtown many years ago. Oh boy, another one came down, another one came down, another one came down. What nobody thought is, where are all these people going to go? 35% of the people on the street are seniors, generally single.
Fastest growing group to the streets.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's reality.
Yeah.
So a project like this, I understand it has no parking, but there is a segment that's never been touched. So I think it's seniors, 35% of the people on the street, generally single. This is perfect for them.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, workforce housing. We've never figured out workforce housing. This is for somebody working in a hotel, downtown San Diego, working in a restaurant, single person. Voila, this is it, they can afford it. Remember, people in the restaurants aren't making huge amounts of money. They can't afford to live anywhere near downtown.
Exactly.
So I applaud this project because finally, to me, it's workforce housing.
Yep, I
And
agree.
it's something we've never done. So I'm excited about it, and I'm happy to make the motion in favor of the project, Mitch.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner. Oh.
Is, in regards to the seniors being the fastest growing population, most of them are on Social Security, okay? So the average Social Security check is maybe like $1,100. The rent on these is $900. It's still not affordable for most of the seniors out there. So that's something we haven't really addressed at all. For workforce housing, great. Maybe 2 seniors could live there, you know? That's about the best that they could do, otherwise they're not gonna have anything. They're not getting food stamps, because even with the Social Security income, they might get $25, okay? out of food stamps. So you can't really even look at it that way. Pretty much their entire check's still been going to rent. So that's something maybe we might have a discussion on. I don't know what we can do to help that, but I just wanted to bring that up.
We're seeing that in the Housing Instability Prevention Program. So we're seeing that seniors are coming in paying 90% or more of their income towards rent. And our goal is to get them to 50. I mean, that's about as good, it's still not where we'd like it. But that's when we had vouchers, right? Yeah, it used to be 30. So, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And remember, one of the things we had asked the team to do maybe a couple of years ago was in the navigation center, start collecting data. When seniors walk in saying, I'm in search of housing, what were you paying? What did the rent escalate to? Because we need to have a better idea of the sweet spot that we need to build more of to create the infrastructure. So that's something that, that's just data driven, right? If you have a number of people who say, as you just said, I was paying $1,400, it's going up to $1,600, I can't afford it because my Social Security check and a side check equal $1,800, then, so what do we need to do? But again, I do agree with what Commissioner Cushman said, and I said it earlier, the workforce piece of it, because you actually would have some people who maybe seniors and are still working a second job, right? And you have the restaurant workers. I've made this comment that the Mission Valley West project that SDHC is building with the new conference center and hotel, there should be a housing commission managed studio structure of this nature on that property, because it just makes sense that you're going to have all these people working in a convention center, in a hotel, and a conference center, a stadium. Why not start to think about projects with that view? Where are they going to live? And don't say, well, they'll come from all over to come work the 8 home games a year. That to me makes no sense, right? So I think it's been a good conversation today. But you're great point. So, all right, we have a motion by Commissioner Cushman. Second by Commissioner Jackson. Seeing no further comments, questions, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Colin and Michelle. Excellent job today. I will echo what Lisa said. This has been a really good discussion today. Precision. We have to have direction on what we're trying to build, what we're trying to accomplish, and again, seniors are the fastest growing group, and I love the fact that the conversation, again, segmented, not just homelessness, youth, families, seniors, right? How are we actually addressing the crisis? It's what matters. So, all right. That is the last item on the agenda. If no further comments or questions, then I will call this meeting of the board to adjourn at 10:34 a.m. Thank you very much for everybody's time and attention today. Good job.